It's been 2 weeks. As you may recall, I mentioned in the Q&A a few weeks back, while ironically drawing some of the worst Scooby-Doo fan art ever put on the internet, that one of my favorite things to do when I'm in an art block is to redraw old art of mine from childhood to boost my ego and make me feel like I've actually improved as an artist. Recently, some of the characters I considered redrawing for fun were the ones from my personal comic strip that I made as a kid. And before I show you the before and after pictures, it only makes sense that I'd introduce you to said characters as well as get into the extended lore and exposition of the comic strip itself. It's not that extensive, don't worry. With that being said, let me tell you all about this little comic strip I had called... Now, sadly, I can't find the first drawings I ever made of the characters from the comic, nor can I really remember how old I was when I drew them per se, but I think the date I've convinced myself it was is about the time I was in 1st or 2nd grade. At the latest, I know it was at least 3rd grade because I did manage to find a picture of them that I drew in 2006. Here it is. Now, as you might have guessed from the title of the comic strip, which, yes, phonetically does include the 2 paw prints, you have to write it with the paw prints or it doesn't count. All the characters consisted pretty much of this one guy and his many, many pets. In case you can't tell, I read a lot of Garfield as a kid for inspiration. There's the guy, yes, he's a human. His name was actually just my last name because I wanted to name him something I wouldn't forget when I was 8. But since I don't want any crazy internet stalkers, I'll just refer to him here as H. Not Mr. H, just H. Yeah. Now, before I tell you the names of all the other characters, I want you all to guess what animals they were. Like, right here. It's pretty obvious, right? I mean, the pointy ears, the whiskers, the tail. She's a cat. Her name was Flare. I don't know if I named her after the flare marker, but I'm assuming that's where the name came from. Now look at this guy. He's kind of small, got a beak, little legs. That's right, he's a bird. His name is CP. Stands for Cool Parrot, because I was so original at naming people back then. And this guy. Yeah, it's pretty obvious what animal he is, right? A dog. Yep, you heard me. He's a dog. His name was Sparky. Why does his ear stick up like that? Artistic liberties. I actually resorted to drawing him with a little hat later on so his ear would stay down. Like, I made it canon that his ears stood up on their own instead of just learning to draw better. That's the kind of kid I was. Speaking of learning to draw better, let's analyze the anatomy of some of these guys. 'Cause it warrants some explanation. So, none of them have mouths because animals don't talk. Except when they did. In fact, the only character who didn't talk was H, ironically. These are their feet, paws, leg things, because I couldn't draw sitting animals right to save my life. When characters like Sparky and Flare stood up, though, they looked like this. That dot on the side of his head is a nose. Those are her whiskers. Yes, she only has them on one side. Yada, yada, yada. I was 8! As time went on, I actually introduced new characters to the series, such as Squecky the hamster. Yes, I spelled it like that on purpose. It is pronounced Squecky. Flug the fly. He wasn't around very long. This mouse, whose name I kept changing, so today I'll just call him Mouse. He was like the pseudo-villain of the comic strip. Ping, who's a penguin with a tail. Long story short, it was aliens. And tons of other characters. Here's a fun fact. While I used to do panel-by-panel strips of people and pets on, blank pieces of printer paper, I eventually switched over to an interesting medium to draw them on instead. I drew them on the handout programs for church every Sunday. Yep, while everyone else was listening to the pastor give his sermon about Jesus, I was drawing the next installment of my comic starring anthropomorphic animals in the handout. I even used a pew Bible as a lap desk. So yeah, I'm going to hell. It's fine! Anyway, unlike some of my earlier drawings, I kept most of those program comics. I still keep them in a drawer next to my bed in my room. See?
So here's one bulletin for scale, and here's the rest of them.
So why and when did I stop writing this amazing comic, you might ask? Well, I got into anime, and suddenly focusing my time on cartoony animals wasn't cool anymore. I actually recall a day in 8th grade where I went out to my friends while we were in art class, and I was all serious and mellow, like I had just made a life-altering decision, and I said, so yeah. I think I'm gonna put people and pets on hiatus for a while to, focus on other projects. Like, I took it that seriously, you guys. I never regularly made P&P comics after that, and I don't particularly have a plan to continue the series now either, but hey, at least you get to see those cool redraws I promised. BAM! The reason they're wearing clothes in the redraws is because I actually based them off of the art style I have for my other kind of not sort of a comic series, Todd and Atlas. Here's some characters from that. Again, I'm not great at drawing animals, so I figured I might as well try and go for the fun anthropomorphic style as opposed to realistic. The reason H is not in these is because I actually wanted to follow the rules of the Todd and Atlas universe, and there's no humans, so here's a drawing I did of H on the side. As you can see, I actually went for realism there, because I actually know how to draw people now, at least a little bit better than I used to. So there you go, People and Pets, the comic that started me out on my journey to being an artist. It'll always hold a special place in my heart, what can I say? But I mean, who has time for cartoony animals when you can have cool new characters like cartoony ninjas and depressed animals? To be fair, one type of dog with pointy up ears are corgis. Not that Sparky was ever meant to be a corgi, but you know what, I don't care and neither should any of you, so why don't we just drop it and I go back to working on my art?